Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 2, the Bass and Bars podcast. Today we have the legendary Milk Dee.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, man. This is number 2. The first one I had the OG Ron Carter on here. One of the best ever. Actually, one of the most recorded jazz bass players of all time.
Yes.
And today we have one of the most sampled hip-hop musicians of all time.
The most sampled hip-hop artist.
That's amazing, bro.
Yes.
So the song that we're doing today is Top Billin', Audio 2, which actually was released in 1986.
Yes.
Let's take him through this story, man. What happened that day? Take me from breakfast.
The day that the song was created?
Yes.
Okay, the crazy thing is I was sick. I had bronchitis. And what I used to do is every day, come home from school, go in the basement. I had I still have it, a Tascam 246 4-track and King of Chill's foot pedal sampler and a Roland 707, which I bought from King of Chill as well. And that's what I used to create. So I used to just go down there and create every day. I learned later in life that that's a state called unconditional creation. So I feel like now I realize I was in that state where I was just being creative and doing what I do, not thinking about anything else. So that particular day, I was sick. I got sick because I was in the basement, unfinished basement, and you would get sick being down there too long. So I was actually working on a remix for Light's song, Take It Light. And I was like, I could put this to that. But then I was like, I like that. Let me write something. So I wrote something and put it down. The whole thing took about 35, maybe 45 minutes to create the beat, write the rhymes, and record the vocals, right? I was just playing around and didn't really think nothing of it. I think it was the next day or soon after, Daddy-O came over and I let him hear it. And he was like, yo, this is the one right here. And I was like, really? He was like, this is the one. And I was like, oh, all right. I didn't think that when I made it. I just made it. And if it wasn't for him, it might not have ever came out because I did that every day. I just created. So that was the creation story. Now, after it was created, right, we had, all right, let me go back a little bit. So in 1984, this is really the origin, right?
Okay.
In 84, King of Chill took me to a studio to record a Clean Up New York song for this contest. So I went with him to Richard Lee. So Richard Lee is from a group called Clear. They had a song called Intimate Connection. So we went to his house, I recorded it, which was the only thing that I had ever recorded. And I submitted it to for the contest, which I knew I was gonna win. Of course I didn't. And then proceeded to shop this song and was getting responses like, sounds like a commercial, because it was a Clean Up New York. Anyway, I sent it into Medgar Evers College. They had this show where they would play demos and then people would call and rate the demos or whatever. And I submitted it and, he played it and, it became #1. Now, all along I was telling my father, who was an entrepreneur, he had nightclubs, a lot of different businesses. I told him, I'm gonna be a rapper. And he was like, yeah, whatever. He didn't take me serious. But once they started playing it on this radio station, 89.1 college radio. I was like, they're playing my song. And he was like, yeah, whatever. And one day I knew it, I think it was Thursdays it would come on. And I called him and I'm like, where you at? And he was like, I'm home. I was like, you buy a radio? And he was like, yeah. I'm like, turn to 89.1. He was like, all right. He turned. As soon as he turned it, then they played it. And I was like, that's my song. He was like, oh, Okay, I see you serious, that kind of thing. So he said, I have a friend who's a promoter, like his competition as club promoters, who started an independent label, Elmo the Magic Christian, that's his name. He says, so Elmo has a label, I'll take you over there and see what he says. So he took me and kids to meet Elmo. Elmo was like, yeah, I'm doing a Christmas record or whatever, you could rap on that. So that was my first record in 1984, was the Christmas record. But what happened was, basically my father was funding it and we were working the record, right? We were putting the records in stores on consignment and any kind of promotion that we could do. We didn't know what we were doing. And one day, I'll never forget this, we were we went to this record store. It was right across the street from Port Authority. And they said, oh, so-and-so's not here right now. He'll be back at 3. It was like maybe 2:15. So we like, all right, me and my father, we went in the car and we were sitting there and we started talking. And I was like, we're doing all of the work anyway. We might as well start our own label. You know, that was the conversation we had. And he was like, yeah, we should start our own label. And that's when we decided right there that day to start First Priority Music.
Wow.
So we released our first record, which was, we called it a flip-flop mini album, which had Audio 2 on one side with 3 songs. And on the other side, it was the Alliance of MCs, which is King of Chill's group.
Alliance, yeah.
And they had 3 songs as well. And at that time, the company was called Priority Records. But then we got into a conflict with Priority Records, so we had to change it. So that was the first one. Now, our second release, which was, the first one was in 85, and the second release was Make It Funky with Top Billin on the B-side, and also Light's song, I Cram to Understand You, with Take It Light as the B-side. We released those 2 at the same time.
Before Light was well known.
Right, well, yeah.
That was the first one.
That was the first one. Well, it was the second one it was the third one for us.
Yeah.
But it was the first one for Light.
And Top Billin was a B-side.
The B-side to Make It Funky, yes.
Okay.
And so then, and this is the story that I was telling you about. So what we did was we made stickers. We were the first label to do that, by the way, and we blasted the stickers up everywhere.
Like the big ones, the wheat paste one?
No,
or smaller ones?
little small stickers.
Okay.
We had the I Like Cherry stickers and the Top Billin stickers and I Cram to Understand You, and they were like the cheap ones. You know what I mean?
I'm big on stickers. I got
paper.
them on. Whenever I have a song out, I got stickers and I sign them and hand them out to everybody.
Yeah.
People like that stuff.
Yeah. Well, back then, nobody, like I said, we were the first to do it.
Wow.
So that was what we thought we could do to promote it. And also we decided that we were going to use the actual records as promotion. We couldn't afford to do videos and all of that, which videos weren't even popular really at that time. Wow. They were just starting to do videos for hip hop, and which is why we don't have a video for Top Billin. Right? Most people don't know that.
So what's the video that I saw on YouTube?
So they did, years later, they did a video for Top Billin, and they just cut footage from all of our other videos and put it together into like a video for Top Billin, but there's no original video for Top Billin. So we decided that we were gonna use the records as a promotional item. Back then they weren't giving away records either. So not like how we did it. So we just always had, records with us, and wherever we would go, we would just give out the records.
Wow.
And
did that cost you a lot of money?
It did cost a lot.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
It cost a lot, and we served like Red Alert to this day. He's like, you know how many copies of Top Billin I have? Every time y'all would see me, you would give me a copy. He's like, I got a whole crate just from the ones that y'all gave me. So that's what we were using as our promotional item, and we would send them out. So we bought like a list. Right, you gotta remember too, back then there was no internet and all of that, so we had to actually buy a paper list of radio stations around the world. So we would just, every day, we would put the records in envelopes with the filler, the cardboard fill a thing and type up by hand every label, and we would go to the post office with a stack of records and send them out every day, like to the point where when we would go to the post office, when they would see us, at first they used to be mad because we would go and we'd have, 100 or 200 records, and the people on the line would be mad and that kind of thing. So it got to the point where they would see us coming, they'd be like, just go around the back. And we would just go to the back, we'd drop the records off, and then the next day we'd pay for the records that we dropped off the day before, because like I said, we were going every day. And we had this piece of paper that we put in, and it was like, I think it said, this is dope. Let us know your opinion. And we put a phone number, and a return envelope. So we started getting stuff back in the mail, like about the songs and the response that we was getting. People were even calling, leaving messages like, the song is terrible. It's just crap.
Wow.
She sounds like a boy. He sounds like a girl. It's just a beat, that kind of thing. Like, and this is going on.
So you had pushback, and you were a kid at this point. You were like 15 years old, and people were trashing what you were doing. You were working so hard. You were spending money. You were spending time. And I've seen this a lot with artists, and I think it's important for people to understand that when you come out as an artist, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be opposition. People are going to tear you down. People are going to tell you suck. People are going to be like, oh, that song isn't it. There's all these opinions out there, and it crushes a lot of people. I've seen it kill a lot of dreams, but that's part of the game. You have to have the fortitude to overcome that friction.
Absolutely.
And I've seen it go both ways. But look what happens when you stick to your guns.
There were times when I would come home from school and I would cry. Like,
wow.
Just keeping it real. Like, I'd be so hurt. Like, oh, this is never going to work. And this went on for months. It's whack, it's whack, it's whack. And we didn't give up. But, and just another side note, I had this pair of shoes and I had a hole in my shoe. And they were teasing me, right? I used to forget about how they used to tease me even before this. When I used to be like, I'm gonna be a rapper, I got abused for years, from middle school all the way to high school. But I had a hole in my shoe, so they was teasing me about the hole. And I told my father, he was like, because we spending all the money, on the records and stuff. Right. And he had a good job, but we were spending all of it. So he said, well, let's, whatever, let's go get some shoes. And I told him, I was like, Dad, I would rather spend that $100 on 100 more records than get a new pair of shoes. I don't care what they say. He said, okay. And he ordered 100 more records.
Damn.
And I wore those shoes with that hole in it basically until we had some success.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was hard. It was hard, but this was the greatest lesson I ever learned in life, and I still hold this. It's like, you can't listen to what people say. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody got one. A lot of them stink. I often think, suppose I would have let that stop me, where would I be now? And I also say 30 years later, 40 years later, that same song, the same song that they said was whack, is the most sampled hip hop song ever, and has, in my opinion, actually changed the course of music.
It absolutely has. And it's provided massive income for you throughout your entire life. The numbers you were just telling me over there are astounding. I've never even heard. I mean, it gives me hope in my publishing catalog. But yeah, imagine if you let that push you down. And it happens all the time to people.
It does.
And it's sad. It's just a weird thing about human nature, but life's going to give you them tests. And life's always like this. There's a lot of opportunities, but it depends what you do with them is going to depend on where it goes.
And that's what separates, the men from the boys. Like, all of those obstacles, that's really the difference. When I let my mother hear Top Billin, she was like, what is that? It sounds noisy. I don't like that. So even my mother.
Even people close to you are going to say, now, son, I know this is not your father really believed.
Go get a real job.
I've had people close to me be like, hey, man, what are you doing with that new music video and da-da-da? And I'm like, yo, that video worked better than anything I've ever done. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So it's a series of tests. People close to you, people that don't know you, but it all, being a musician really goes right in line with your self-actualization. And it's a hard road that we choose. We chose a high difficulty road, like in a video game. Like what difficulty level? If you chose to be a musician, you chose a harder one, straight up, than the 9 to 5 and all this other stuff.
Yeah, it is
I ain't
harder.
gonna sugarcoat it.
Testing on your personality is stressful. You have to have a lot of faith. What can I say? You have to have faith in yourself. Who are you to think that you could make a living by creating, going on stage and shaking your ass and writing rhymes? You know what I mean? Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
That, it's that kind of thing.
Run down off the top of your head, what songs sampled Top Billin'?
It's so many. It's over 300 at this point. There's the Biggie has it on his album. Tupac, the Fugees, R. Kelly, the Loonies, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Lady Gaga. I could go on and on and on. It's a lot. Mary J. Blige.
Yeah, Real Love.
Real Love, which is a big one.
Yeah, and it really uses that exact rhythm. I mean, they funked it. They put some dope stuff on top of it. It's the same, it's your drums 100%. So
a lot of people don't, wait, let me stay on Real Love for a second. A lot of people don't know that Prince Marky D co-produced that song. Prince Marky D from the Fat Boys.
Okay.
He's a producer of Real Love. Him and Mark Rooney produced Real Love. So
crazy bass line, crazy layers they did in that record.
Yeah.
What advice would you give people who are trying to make a record that really impacts the entire world? What's the essence of making a record that really goes and lasts forever like that?
To be honest, I don't think there's a formula. In my opinion, I think that you just have to be creative and you just do what you do and it happens.
Just going at it every day.
Yeah, like for me, I've never been able to go in the studio and be like, oh, I'm gonna make a hit song. Or these are the elements of a hit song. If it was like that, then everybody or anybody could make a hit song. I think that it's about the energy and the universe and, like I said, the unconditional creation where you just create, and that energy makes, in my opinion, it makes it what it is. Some people can conjure, hits. I don't know what to call it, but for me, I think it's a natural, just a vibe thing, and really the story of my life.
Right.
Because my next biggest song was "I Don't Want You Back" by Amen. I don't know if you know that song.
Yeah.
But it was a huge song. And
that was in the 2000s, right?
2004.
Right.
6 million copies
we
sold on that. But the thing about that song, just like Top Billin', when we recorded the song, all of the labels loved it. They thought it was a hit song, but they were like, it's too much cursing in it. We'll never be able to get it played on the radio. And that year when it was released, it was the most played song in the world.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So another example of people telling you, what you are or what you could do, what you're capable of, and it means nothing. That's what they all said. It would never get played on the radio, and it became the most played song in the world.
Wow.
So that's the story of my life.
Yeah, so you went
people
to,
telling me what I
again
can't
on
do.
that one, and it worked.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So Top Billin' was done in 35 minutes. So those are the original vocals you laid down in your house and everything?
Sick in the basement, yes.
Wow. You know what's funny about that song is the Adlibs come before the words.
Okay, it's funny you say that because producers, a lot of producers come to me and they say, yo, how'd you do that? And it's actually a technique that a lot of people don't know that I use to do that, which I learned from another engineer at INS Studio, but I utilize it differently. So real quickly, this is what it is. We were in the studio and he wanted to make the reverb happen before the word. So he recorded trigger words on one track, right? Like, chilling or whatever. And then he set the reverb and he turned the tape over and played it backwards and recorded the reverb. So when you flip the tape back over, the reverb happened before the word. So I was like, oh, I wonder what would happen if you did that with a delay. So I took trigger words from the song, I set the delay, I turned the tape over and played it, recorded it, and that's how we did that. That's how you hear it the delay lead up to the word. So that's a technique.
There's not many records that do that. Did they used to do that back in? Is that a thing? I can't remember other ones that do.
That's the first time I ever heard it. Like I said, I heard the engineer show me how to do it with a reverb, but that was the first time I ever heard it with a delay.
This is so funny. Like, so a lot of music actually is subconscious. Like, of course, we know the words of the song, we can hear the beat, but there's a lot of subconscious elements within the music.
Right.
So I had a front of the house engineer on tour last summer. I was on tour with OAR, and he told me a concept that I never in my life heard. I've been doing music professionally since I was a kid. He goes, I always have delay on the vocals because that way the people hear what you say twice. The conscious mind hears it, and then your subconscious hears it again.
Right.
And almost all songs have delay. I'm just, quarter note delay. We throw it on all the records.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I've never heard anyone say that, and it's probably
that's
right.
As the reason, right? Like, so you hear it twice.
Yeah, your subconscious hears it.
Right, because you can't even, a lot of times that delay, you're not even hearing it. And it's so buried, but your subconscious is hearing it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I hear that.
But I thought it was so funny because I'm like, I've never heard anyone talk about this.
There are people that actually put subliminal messages and stuff like that in songs. Yeah. Like if you listen real close, you'll be like, wait a minute.
Damn.
Is that a voice back there? Or you might not even be able to hear it at all. So your subconscious picks up on a lot of stuff. Like even that, the reverse delays, most people don't hear that, but like some people like Fame from MOP. Every time I see him, like the first time he pulled me to the side and was like, he's like, I heard that shit. How'd you do that? I was like, oh, that's how we did it. So he's not the only one, but a lot of people they can't even hear that, but it's there. And even to Go Brooklyn or whatever, this is like all subliminal stuff.
And it's very light in the mix, but it really adds a lot. And not to mention you ran with that concept.
Right, yeah, yes.
On how many records, LL Cool J, Nas, all that. You know what it might be with having the ad-lib before the line might trigger people to know the line better, to sing along early on in their listening it probably has something to do with the success of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Might have to bring that back.
I would think. So I've been doing it lately. I figured out how to do it because, like I said, we had to flip the tape over to do it then. And it took me a minute to figure out how to do it in the computer. So so the new stuff that I'm working on has it. I figured it out.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Which is another thing I just want to throw in here real quick. Like I said, I had a cassette 4-track is what I use to record. And I think that with limitation, that causes innovation.
Right.
And it makes you more creative, opposed to now, right? When I turn on my computer and I have unlimited tracks, unlimited kicks, drums, snare drums,
samples, royalty-free,
bass sounds. It's like, to me, that doesn't, you have to put yourself in a certain frame of mind to be innovative under those conditions, in my opinion. Like, but when you only have whatever, then it forces you to be innovative.
I used to use a lot of, or I shouldn't say I used to use a lot of samples, but my current process is all on stringed instruments. All my stuff I write on acoustic guitar, electric guitar, bass. I got like 12 different instruments in my studio. I don't even have a keyboard or drum machine. It's all based off of that, which it's limitation, but it's a no-brainer. I'm the bass guy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it's like lean into that. And when I leaned more into that, I started writing way better music.
Yes.
Because otherwise you're like digging through Splice and all this stuff, dude.
This is what you do. Let me do what I do.
Lean into your strengths.
And I think that that's part in my opinion, part of the problem is that a lot of people try to do what other people do, or they try to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Quick story, another story.
That's all right.
And this is another lesson I learned. I was on this cruise and I was gambling, playing blackjack, and this lady kept, every night she would come and sit at the table and she would start playing crazy or whatever. So every time she would come to the table, I would get up and I would leave and I would go to another table. So one day she saw me and she was like, yo, she's like, let me talk to you. She was like, every time I come to the table, you always get up and walk away. And I was like, yeah. She was like, why? Because of the way I play? And I was like, yeah. She was like, because I'm not following the rules, right? And I was like, yeah. She said, well, who wrote those rules? She said, did the casino write those rules? Do you know who wrote those rules? And I was like, yes. And then challenged me like, okay, I bet you if you sit at the table, I'm going to tell you what to do. You sit at the table and we're going to make some money together. And I sat with that lady for like 3 days on the cruise and made so much money. Everybody was leaving the table.
What?
Right? Because we weren't following the rules, so they were doing what I did. But anyway, that made me understand that, number one, rules are made to be broken, and who wrote the rules?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you have to have, like I said, they was like, oh, it's just a beat. When Top Billin came out, other than Sucker MCs, a lot of the hip hop records were full instrumentation, the Sugar Hill joints, bass lines and keyboards and stuff like that. And it's like, it's just a beat. Somebody told us you can't do, actually Elmo the Magic Christian said, you can't do a record on a 4-track. And my father was like, what do you mean? It's supposed there's only 4 tracks. He was like, you can't do it. And Top Billin is 4 tracks.
It's only 4 tracks, the whole thing.
4 tracks.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's the voice, the beat, the reverse delays, and the Go Brooklyn.
Wow. Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
And that's all you need, and all the parts you can really hear.
Yep.
And it makes for a great, recognizable record.
Yeah.
What was your logic behind the kick pattern of that? So first off, we're about to do a bass of bars right now. And I had to practice the hell out of this one. It's going to sound simple to the layman because I'm playing one note a lot, but it was really hard to memorize. Like I practiced it for 2 hours yesterday, 2 hours the day before. And I know this because I time everything whenever I'm on my instrument. So then 30 minutes today and about 30 minutes before that. So like 5 hours full on running over and over. I'm very methodical with the foot pedal. And it's hard to memorize. You got to really ingrain it. A lot of hip hop beats, they're not as varied as this one. What was your logic behind that?
There was no logic behind it. It was just, like I said, I was just being creative, creating. The thing that makes it unconventional is the loop. It's not a 16-bar loop. It's a 12-bar loop. So actually, a lot of people think it's just like the beat that they hear in the beginning. They think that it's just that playing over and over, but it's actually, I think it's a 6-bar loop instead of 8, and it just happens over and over. And actually, the crazy thing is, and this is Daddy-O's doing, when we went to mix the song, where the pullouts come, Stop Scheming, he took the music out, and I didn't understand why, but right there is where the loop kind of goes off.
Oh, okay.
Every time, and he took it out, but then it drops back in.
So the breaks happened in post. At first, you had the drums going all the way through.
Right.
Copy.
And so it's like evolving. The song is constantly evolving. Not to mention that the verses, most rap songs have 16-bar verses. Right. Top Billin has, like, the first one I think is 12, and then the second one is like 5.
Yep.
Every verse is a different length, which also makes it unconventional. There's one, I think it's like 4 or 5 bars. I just do like 2 lines and then go to the chorus again.
Yeah.
So
the form is tough, and hip hop isn't always that way. You know what else is like that was really hard for me to memorize? Like Peter Piper, Run DMC had some hard forms.
Yeah.
I performed with DMC a few times, and it reminded me of This reminded me of that. The form was difficult, but it sounded easy.
Well, right, again, that goes to the rules. Like, who says that a verse is supposed to be 16 bars?
Yeah. If anything, it'll catch the listener off guard, which is very important in writing a catchy song.
Yeah. You know, these set patterns, these set rules are made to be broken. And that was always my thing, which like true fans that love my music understand me, and a lot of them are weird, but people never understood why, you know, why'd you only do one top billin'? You know, why didn't you make another one like that? My whole thing is always to be different and innovate. And when you listen to the albums, you realize there's a whole lot of crazy stuff on, you know, on all of my albums. There's all the rules are being broken. That's what I do. I try to do something unique and innovative, like the questions.
So the common thread is doing things a new way.
Yes, like even with my name, right? When I came up with the name, I was like, what's something that nobody would ever use? And back then, everybody was, you know, Melly Mel or Busy Bee, their name plus whatever. And I was like, what's something that nobody would ever use? Milk, you know, that kind of thing. So that's my whole shtick.
What are you working on these days musically?
I'm still working. Actually, right now I'm working on an EP with Teddy Riley.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so we're working on that. That's cool. And like I told you, I'm doing a lot of shows and doing a lot of sync licenses and sample clearances.
Them sync licenses are hitting.
If they're hitting, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for my life and my career and everything.
And grateful you negotiated those splits properly at the beginning, and you were in business with your dad.
Yes.
A lot of time, if you were on a major label, they would have somehow found a way to take away some or all of those rights from you.
Yes. So, you know, I'm grateful for that as well. Yes. Yeah. And it's weird because, you know, I've been called a one-hit wonder and stuff like that. And I think that every artist has a path. And I'm happy. I'm happy with my path, and I'm happy with my contribution. And, you know, they could call me whatever they want. I know who I am, and I know my contribution to this jam, so I'm good.
I'm happy for you, man. You're a good dude, bro.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, hey, let's get into this bass and bars episode, man. Yes. I'm ready to slap some bass. You ready to spit some rhymes?
Let's do it.
Let's go, man.
All right.